Hi, everyone. Breaking news tonight that the Mar-a-Lago home of former President Donald Trump has been searched by the FBI. CNN and the New York Times reporting that the search appears to be focused on 15 boxes of documents that the former president took with him to Mar-a-Lago. The Justice Department reported to be looking for classified information within those 15 boxes. Now, regular viewers of this show know that I have been critical of the left-leaning media, who I believe have taken nuggets of information about the January 6th investigation, and rather than providing sober legal analysis, have advocated for the former president to be indicted. Rather than telling us what's happening, they've often been telling us what they wish was happening. And tonight, the politicized media has been going nuts with often biased coverage, some of it just inaccurate. We'll talk about that later. But first, let's just have some straight talk about this. Bottom line, tonight's development is very significant. This isn't the home of former DOJ official Jeffrey Clark or the phone of Trump lawyer John Eastman. This is the home of the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. This raid must have been approved by the Attorney General himself. It must have been. Legally, it means that they showed a judge that there was probable cause that a crime was committed and there could be evidence of the crime at the home. Donald Trump, who wasn't at his home at the time of the raid, he actually broke the news himself, saying in a statement, quote, "These are dark times for our nation as my beautiful home Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida is currently under siege, raided and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. Nothing like this has ever happened to a president of the United States before." Now, that's certainly true. This is unprecedented. No former president has had the Justice Department get a warrant to search their primary residence. And as you'd expect, the former president was seething over it. In a statement, he said, quote, "After working and cooperating with the relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate. It is prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by the radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024. Now, I have been a major skeptic that the DOJ would indict Donald Trump, in part because I believe that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, just doesn't want to go there with a former president. For example, he refused to indict Trump aides Dan Scavino and Mark Meadows for contempt of Congress, even though the January 6th committee referred it and asked the DOJ to do it. But this is a big step that could change a lot. But maybe not in connection with the investigation of January 6th or even that fake elector scheme that's being investigated. But look, if there is any indictment of the former president, that would be a cataclysmic event. So joining us now for some more straight talk is former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, who, like me, has expressed skepticism of some of the coverage of the investigation up to now, and Jay Town, a former U.S. attorney appointed during the Trump administration. Thank you both for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, Renato, let me start with you. How significant do you think this is?
It's very significant. I don't think you need to be an attorney to know that if the FBI executes a search warrant at your home, that's a very serious matter. And if one of my clients told me that the FBI had raided his home that morning, I would tell him that he's likely to be charged with the crime.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, I will say one wrinkle here is we are seeing some reporting that this is related to the classified documents issue, not the fake elector scheme, as you mentioned a moment ago. What's unusual about that is usually the mishandling of classified information in itself is not the basis for criminal charges that the DOJ would bring, unless those classified materials are used to obstruct justice or are used to be transferred to a third party or something like that. That just suggests to me that there must be some plus factor here, because I highly doubt that Merrick Garland is taking this unprecedented step. And I don't think without belief that this investigation is going somewhere.
Yeah,
I just have the.
I agree with that. Jay Town, do you agree with it?
I do. I mean, as Renato said, the unauthorized removal or retention of classified materials, I mean, that's a misdemeanor. 18 U.S.C. 1924 for those keeping score at home. And so there must be a plus factor here beyond just, boxes of information that may have, made it in the two guys in a truck. This has got to be the FBI and the Department of Justice signaling. This is a breathtaking moment. This is historic. This is just like you said, Dan, this isn't Jeffrey Clark's cell phone being seized. This is a former president of the United States and his residence. And as you correctly pointed out, in the search warrant, the affiant, whoever it was, had to convince a judge not only that a crime had been committed, probable cause there was a crime committed, but that there was evidence of it, and that evidence was at the president's private residence. Now, you can't just say at his home, because he has several homes. They at least believed that it was in Mar-a-Lago. So there is a very specific investigation going on at DOJ involving the president of the United States. That is something that up until today, I didn't even believe was happening, that there was any investigation at all.
Right.
And you don't search the president's home unless you feel like you have a prosecution in your cargo pocket ready to go.
Well, and it seems that all of us then are in agreement that there's got to be something more here. That yes, this reporting, because we're relying on reporting from the New York Times and a couple of others who are basically saying that this is the heart of what it's about. But it is hard to believe, and I'm going to read from an article that was in the website Lawfare, which I think does a very good job of digging deep on a lot of legal issues, where they pointed out that in the past, George H.W. Bush's administration destroyed telephone logs and email records that were relevant to an ongoing congressional investigation into whether Bush had ordered State Department to search Bill Clinton's passport records. They talked about how the counsel to Bill Clinton advised employees of the risk of disclosure under this law, which led some to keep diaries and start using private email accounts, et cetera. The point being that when it comes to this particular issue of the Presidential Records Act and maintaining that kind of information, it is hard to believe that they would be at Mar-a-Lago just for that. And I think that we're all in agreement. So I'm going to now, and I'm going to get a little legal here because I think it's very important, because you're not getting context on a lot of the other networks as to what's really going on here. You're getting a lot of, I think, in certain cases, wishful thinking. So I want to talk about one statute that could be relevant here, a different one than you mentioned, Jay, which is 18 U.S. Code 2071. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so with intent to do so, and carries away any record, proceeding, map, book, et cetera, or in any public office with any judicial or public officer of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. There has been a lot of coverage as of late about whether Donald Trump was actually taking documents, ripping them up and flushing them down a toilet. I mean, I'm trying to figure out why now? What happened today? What happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks that has suddenly made the Presidential Records Act front and center? Renato?
I think that the FBI had to have information that there was evidence right now at this time at his residence. In other words, it had to be fresh. They were not going to go and get a warrant based on evidence that they had about what had happened back in 2021 when Trump left office. Okay, so to me, there had to be something fresh here. And, I think James Comey's testimony to Congress regarding prosecution of classified information was very on point, in which he said that generally what they're looking for a prosecution is something like obstruction of justice, willfully transferring that material to a third party, something like that, not just merely mishandling it.
Right.
And so that's the sort of thing that I would be, looking for here. If I was a defense attorney on Trump's team trying to figure out what this could be about, I would be asking him, did you try to destroy these documents in some way? Were you trying to hide evidence in some fashion? Were you transferring these documents to other people to aid in some other venture or matter that you had? I mean, that's the sort of thing that I would be asking him.
Jay, what do you make of that?
I agree with that. And by third party, I mean, typically when we're dealing with classified information, we're talking about a foreign national or talking about traditional sort of espionage. But in the context of domestic terrorism, there could be information where, at least prosecutors believe that whatever was taken is being shared with different groups. I'll tell you that, I think that Cipollone recently testified before the grand jury, or at least gave some documents up. And so that might be that fresh information that Renato was mentioning. That is important, and we are kind of bumping up against sort of that 90-day policy where DOJ doesn't like to serve warrants of any kind when we start coming up against elections. So we're sort of on the outskirts of that right now before the midterms, and so maybe that's what sort of pressured the FBI into moving this week.
Maybe, but I hope it was more than that, right? Because serving a warrant on the former president of the United States is a huge deal. I know that some people want to pretend like, oh, no one's above the law. And of course that's true. But the reality is when you're talking about the former president of the United States, the standard has to be higher by the Department of Justice. It just has to be. And in this case, I've got to believe, or at least I'll say, I've got to hope that it was, because as we sit here and talk about the Presidential Records Act, and I did a bunch of research to appear on this show tonight about some of the history of the Presidential Records Act, the more I thought about it, the more I just kept coming back to, it's got to be more than this. It just can't just be about presidential records and storing 15 boxes at Mar-a-Lago or not.
Dan, I don't believe that they would execute a search warrant on the President of the United States if an indictment wasn't coming down the pike very soon. It's just too high visibility of a matter to then crawl back into your hole and not comment on ongoing investigations for another year and a half. This is not what happened today. It's imminent.
Let me ask you, Renato, do you think that there will be any comment from the Department of Justice? Meaning, typically, in almost every case, what we hear is it's an ongoing investigation, we can't comment. Because it's the former president of the United States, is it possible that the Department of Justice will issue a statement on this?
No, the only kind of statement I would expect, Dan, is something like, we confirm that law enforcement activity took place at a particular address, something along those lines. What we have seen thus far is some reporting that off the record, they're saying that they're not denying that there was a warrant executed, something along those lines, just clarifying what you would know if you had binoculars and was watching the home at that time, and nothing more than that.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.